All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. I think this is episode 59 or 60. We're definitely getting there in the 60s. We're here with the OG original 3 that started this back in February of 2022. We've got me, Amit, we've got Chris Patel, Darth Chris, and we've got Sachin. Sachin hasn't been on the pod in the past couple of weeks, so really excited to have him back on, give him his insights, and we definitely have some news that's worthy of getting Sachin's insights on. So really excited for everyone to be here. Thank you, 57 people, for being here. We have a lot to talk about. Got China, Taiwan stuff to talk about. Got Palantir's new AIP platform to talk about. Matt should be joining us in a little bit. And we will be discussing more about everything going on with Palantir. Real quick, before we start, let me just put this in the chat. Shameless plug. Please subscribe to dailypalantir.com/subscribe. We've had like 300 people sign up to this newsletter in the past couple of weeks, or in the past couple of days. Free newsletter every single day. We're switching over to Substack, so I think the quality of the newsletter is going to get a lot better. I've been playing with it over the past couple of days. Please make sure if you're not subscribed and you're a Palantir investor to subscribe to that free newsletter every single day. All right, here we go. Big news. Let me tee it up. Let me give the basic intro, and then we're going to get Sachin's perspective first, and then we'll get Chris's. Palantir has introduced a new platform. It is they call it the AIP Artificial Intelligence Platform. And, a lot of you guys know about it so far, but the core thesis of it is this one picture that will be shown here. Imagine an intelligence analyst working for an allied nation in Europe, for example, might prompt AIP as follows. Which of our special forces units are as closest to enemy tank positions and have sufficient supplies of Javelin missiles to mount an offensive? This is a chat-based UX in which someone will ask a question, and theoretically, through NLP, large language models connected to Palantir's Ontology and driven obviously by their AI, get a response. Another example is a scientist searching for new drugs at a large American pharmaceutical company. They would ask the AIP, which of our project's candidate drugs is predicted to be the safest for human use, and do we have the capacity to scale up production for a clinical trial of those drugs? Essentially bringing the consumer-facing ChatGPT, which has well over 300 million users now, into the enterprise and being able to secure the data and the privacy of the data in a meaningful way so that enterprises trust this type of ChatGPT-like product in order to get business value and business use cases from it. I want to start with some raw thoughts. Sachin, when you read this letter yesterday, Alex Karp made a pretty big deal out of it. He said that the philosophical idea of Palantir protecting the data is one of the core moats for why their version of this technology will win. What are your thoughts, and do you think this is a game changer for Palantir? You're on mute.
Okay. Hey guys, first good to be back. I hope everyone is doing good. There are two parts of it. The first part is the branding part. Okay, there's been long time Palantir is saying that we are leading the AI game in enterprise sector. But one thing is what you are doing, and second thing is how you brand it. So when you put AIP as a same pedestal as you have Apollo, Foundry, and Gotham, it is saying that okay, now we have a dedicated offering for you. Okay. Now, funny thing is that many projects have been done in enterprises over the last 5 years at the name of AI. At the end of the day, they are just pretty much at the end of some machine learning, some simple logic. But with ChatGPT, everybody has seen what does it mean to have a real AI solution working. So suddenly, CEOs are asking, our solution doesn't look like that. So now they know they have a kind of a benchmark. So the solution in terms of branding is very straightforward, pointing to that. So that is one. The second part is that we have seen the rise of ChatGPT, but we also have to be aware that ChatGPT is pretty much what we call like a large language model. It's still not like Ontology plus large language model what Palantir is offering. And it's important. I was published one article this morning on LinkedIn. See, you have structured and unstructured knowledge in enterprise setting. Okay, what Ontology does, it provide a structured representation for all kind of domain knowledge, which becomes very important. It's nothing like Wild West where it is just trying to pull information out of thin air. In terms of its reasoning capabilities, it's way superior if large language model is working with some sort of ontology. In terms of contextual understanding, as we saw in the case of example, is way more. In terms of software delivery and software excellence, we have seen Palantir deliver some really cool products. Okay, may not be the best go-to-market products at time, but when it comes to solve complex problems, they are way above what the peers are saying. So they are hitting right where the enterprise wants it. They are showing what they have is a battle test and battle proven stuff. And most important, it comes with a kind of data protection which Palantir is known for. Okay, so to me, uh, I think it's a very good move. The question I'm having in my mind now is that when we are entering into an AI bubble now, which is just starting, okay, before it turns into several trillion dollars bubble, what happens to the stock in the meantime? I mean, does everyone start loading now, or as we saw in the case of AI, or is it going to be something very, I mean, a slow moving pace from here? Back to you guys.
Okay. Chris. So Sachin is bullish on it. He is curious about the go-to-market, curious about how they're going to get it into the world. Chris, you and I talked a little bit on Twitter Spaces yesterday. What were your raw thoughts as you saw this announcement?
I think based on our conversation last week, where I brought it up that Palantir could have done this a long time ago. They've been running AI models for a long time. This is just something that they had to do to catch up with the competition. I don't think this is something that's the aha moment where we're going to see the Palantir S curve automatically hit, and this is the product that's going to sell Palantir to the enterprise. I think there's a lot of projects that are out there that are doing very similar things, and from what I can tell, based on some research that I did with on basically some other LLMs that have just recently come out, yeah, this isn't anything super special. There's also other gaps that I'm not sure how they're going to fill, and how they're going to be able to sell this to the enterprise or even the government space, which is hallucinations. LLMs are good when you ask them a question to, like, let's say, create something, right? Like create a story based on this tribal knowledge of whatever, and it could write a good story. But there's a lot
Can you
of
quickly break down what is an LLM for people, Chris, as you're
so
explaining?
it's a large language model where basically it gets trained on a whole bunch of data to basically it's almost like it's really hard for me to describe it, but basically what it does is it's basically if you train someone to do something, they'll put it out there. It's not AGI, it's not artificial general intelligence, which is like if you put like five cats in a row, one's a cartoon, one's a real one, one's a lion, that it's going to always know which one is which. Like a 2-year old can tell you which one's a cat, but LLMs are not there yet. They're not artificial general intelligence. The problem that you're going to have right now with that is you still have a lot of hallucinations happening, where if you ask it a question, and I've done this, like what I did was I used ChatGPT and I did something very basic. I was just testing it out, where I took a whole bunch of data and asked it to make a chart for me, like make a column based Excel spreadsheet for me, and it did it very well. But then I started asking it questions about the data, and it kept messing up and it kept giving me wrong answers. Now, me being a human, I could tell that's the wrong answer. So I tried different prompts, and I realized that if you don't ask the right question, it won't give you the right answer. And constantly, this is a problem. Now, the problem is when you take it from the enterprise side, you there's no like you have to be you can live with a little bit of leeway in terms of being correct or incorrect, but on the battlefield, you definitely can't. Like the question that Cart put in there, how many javelin missiles does each unit have, and blah 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 blah. It's nice in theory. I like the idea of it, but that also means that the end users at the ground, they need to know how many javelins they have. It has to be fed into like a database. That database has to be queried. So it's it's one of those things that it's not as easy as people think it is. And I don't know if they've I don't know how they've gotten around the hallucinations problem, because even the best models right now they still have an error rate that's pretty high. You need something that's error proof, and there's nothing in this that's error proof yet. So I'd be very leery of this. I think this is an offering that's nice, but I don't think this is the end all be all that's going to drive Palantir into an S curve. And even from an enterprise standpoint, I think a lot of enterprises are asking for this, but they don't necessarily have 100% use cases just yet. Like there are a lot of products that tend to come out, and everyone has really high hopes and aspirations for them, but there are also some downsides to it too that come around that not a lot of people are talking about. Now, I know, Amit, you have a subscription to ChatGPT, and it's and the thing. Have you noticed how many times that there's been an error? Yeah, you too, Sachin. How many times there's been an error when you're asking a question? ChatGPT 4 is more accurate, but it's still, when you ask it questions, even simple questions, sometimes it gives you the wrong answer, right?
I mean, there are issues with that. I mean, I was trying to write a program and it takes a while to get it right. So, I mean, like, first for everyone context, I mean, one of the very good point that Chris raised, that ChatGPT is not AGI. I mean, ChatGPT would be called like a large language model. I mean, it's trained on vast amount of data, and the idea here is to speak and to understand what is the semantics of human language. Okay, now this is important. It tries to interpret the context, but it's not designed to have the context holistically, and that's where this hallucination happens. So a lot of time, like for example, if I'm generating a Python program or I ask it to do something, it will give me a program. Then I run it, I see there are some errors or the output is not what I want. Then I tell it back, then it corrects it. So it takes a while. Okay, so it's productive, definitely. Okay, but it's not there yet. But that's the thing. I mean, this is where the idea of having ontology, and ontology is more about context. So how best they can deliver ontology and LLM kind of capabilities in a single mode. I think that's what something I'm very excited about. Now, one thing is for sure, that whether it's productive or not, as being presented in the popular media, it is going to eat a lot of job. On the other hand, it is also going to make a lot of people who are just average to deliver things way beyond their own capabilities also. So it's not like loss for everyone. Okay, there are going to be, like for example, if you want to build a simple mobile game, okay, you want to build some concept art, if you're not a digital artist, it's very difficult for you. But if you're using DALI 2 or something else to deliver something for you, you can share. So a lot of people, because globally 0.3% population only knows programming, but it doesn't mean that people who doesn't know programming, they don't have ideas. So it will enable many more people to do things in relative to what kind of job it's going to eat. Okay, so the question for everyone is that how you are leveraging AI, whether it's in a form of any predictive model or machine learning or large language or ontology in your job. If you are not using it, yeah, I think it's very likely your job itself is at risk.
Sachin, you just made a good, and Chris, I want to get your perspective on this. You just made a good point that the thesis of why this offering, this AIP, might work is because of the ontology. And I think this is why Sham tweeted this a couple of days ago. Palantir has a long history of delivering AI systems. That's why we had to build the ontology. You can't scale AI to your operations without it. That is one of the many hard-earned secrets, and LLMs only make that more obvious. So, Chris, as you're saying, they should have come out with this a little bit earlier. And I was talking to CodeStrap last night, and he actually agreed with you. He said, look, they probably should have come out with this a little earlier, but his big thing to me was the reason they're coming out with it now is because they're trying to get it right. And I think Sham's tweet is an example of they needed to get the ontology right. And then the governance and privacy of data obviously is a whole separate issue they have to get right in order to launch this. So can you both of you speak a little bit to the fact that the AIP connected to the ontology with the governance and security that Palantir has might be the actual thing that makes this AIP actually usable for a large pharmaceutical company versus any of the startups that are trying to do this?
So this is definitely a unique thing that will help them differentiate themselves compared to other projects that are out there. But it's just going to be hard to see the efficacy of it until we see the contracts come through and the end users actually review this thing. Like we can only speculate at this point, like how effective all of this stuff is. Just because someone says, "Oh, we combine ontology and we combine LLMs and everything will be magic," is just basically someone saying that. And even from a data governance standpoint, a lot of the stuff that they're saying is something that investors definitely want to hear. But I am more concerned with, okay, how is this going to impact the end users? Are the end users going to adopt this? And is it something that's going to be a very
So
successful thing
agreed,
for
but do you
Palantir?
think there's a point about this ontology being connected to the LLM, which makes their like? I agree, they have to get.
I'm not
both.
technically sophisticated enough in this specific subject matter to be able to address that. I mean, like I said, I still find it hard to understand what ontology honestly is. Like, I understand it's the state of being, all that stuff. Like, it's a coined word that's being used, but I still don't know how it's going to relate directly with an LLM just yet. And that's something that even from a Palantir's perspective, I don't know if it's something that's easy to explain, you know.
Okay, Sachin, your thoughts on ontology, LLMs, and why AIP might win because of ontology that obviously a lot of other companies don't have as well.
So here's my thinking about it. Okay, first thing is that I agree with the Chris and Codstrap that when I see the exercise of AIP, my understanding is it's more a repackaging and messaging. Okay, that means they had a tool which was 80-90%, then they put something on top of it. They packaged it because this is where Palantir has been traditionally weak when it comes to go to market, how to package things. Okay, so they realized that this LLM boom and AI boom actually can be leveraged to showcase their products better, and this is what the AIP done. Before even AIP, they were handling AI things. Now, what is different in LLM? I think, okay, with all the criticism that comes with it, okay, one thing I think a lot of people are missing, and even I missed a lot of time, is it's very engaging. So when you are in an enterprise setup and you are using a simple NLP based search, and all have used it, Matt has used it for a long time. Yeah, it's not engaging. Okay, this whole engagement thing is, I mean, it is appealing to your human nature. So we cannot just even like, okay, we can talk about it that it's not perfect, and that's true, and it will take a long time to become perfect. But this appeal to human nature is what reminds me the rise of, like, it reminds me exactly like what I was like 94 95 used to look like when all the barrage of search engine started to come in. It was appealing to something that you can put in the way you want and it will spit something, and it was not useful. And eventually at this time the same thing will happen with the LLM. It will take 3 4 5 years before it becomes super handy. Okay, but it's already, I mean, I have any organization I go and talk, and I'm talking like most of the organizations I have interacted in last 3 months. I mean, they're all like $25 billion plus. Their focus and discussion during our whole time, 60% was around chat GPT and generative AI. So the enterprises are looking, okay, and the discussion about, okay, the data privacy, the data secrecy, I mean, the understanding of context. Like, for example, if you are putting people offshore, and there is a lot of push like how to make unmanned platform offshore. Okay, you want that contextuality to be, you cannot just put humans life or equipments who are expensive just based on something which is dealing with hallucination. So in my view, the whole idea of context, as Palantir has proposed, if they can show it, okay, if they can show that some of the enterprises where they manage to scale things fast and how everybody is working around it is has improved, I think that's a big market, that's a big TAM. But of course they have to deliver it, because nobody takes Palantir at its face value. I think that's, we all know that. Hey, Matt.
Okay, Matt Money, your raw thoughts when you saw yesterday's shareholder letter. What do you think about this AIP?
My thought is that it's more likely exactly what Sachin was saying. It's what's already been being done within the organization. I think it's just being reverbalized and repackaged. I don't think that it's truly going to have a big impact on what I do day to day utilizing the software. And I feel like maybe the reason why it is being done this way is because, you know, people aren't already realizing that Palantir is an AI sort of company, digital twins and stuff of the like, right? And so what they're doing is restating what they're already doing with Gotham. I mean, let's take a step back. What is Gotham actually doing? Gotham is taking a lot of the data and trying to make artificial intelligence read through the data and give you the opportunity to make the right decisions, right? So what's really different? It's just exactly what Sachin said. Like, it might be a different user interface in which you interact with it, but at the end of the day, it's more of the same. just slightly different. I mean, maybe I'm with Chris. Like, I'm not really the tech savvy kind of individual when it comes to a lot of this stuff, but just my initial, off thought sort of thoughts that I had kind of reading with the releases, it's like, what's different to me? And the thing that's beneficial is the people that probably already have a position within the organization have already been researching and know what Palantir is doing. They probably know exactly what Sachin is saying. Is nothing's really different. Maybe a user interface will tweak here, or how it's kind of deployed will change. Maybe it's a different way that it's going to be deployed to different
push back
organizations.
really quickly. Isn't
Yeah.
user interface a big fucking deal? Like Google and ChatGPT are just UXs, but the thing giving you the answer versus searching through stuff, like, does that not?
No,
it should be a huge deal.
Yeah. So I agree that user interfaces, like, okay, you want to have the end users get to the answer as quick as possible. That's the end goal, right? Like, if you're trying to do a task, if I go to, let's say I go to Matt and I say, hey, Matt, I want data that's X, Y, and Z. I want it in a chart. I want to do this. And then I want you to help me make a decision on whether we should proceed on a project or not. That's Matt's job. He analyzes everything, uses the logic that he's learned over the past 20 years that he's been doing this. And he applies that logic and that everything that he's learned. It helps me make a decision. So if I can get Matt to do the job faster and get to the point faster, yes, that's definitely beneficial. But this is not something that Matt can't do. It's just that Matt, what used to take Matt 3-4 hours, now only takes Matt maybe an hour, right? Or less than that, because now Matt can get to that data much, much faster. So I agree that those are definitely benefits, but to take Matt away from the job is completely stupid. So it would be something like, hey, AI is going to replace Matt's job. No, because there is something of an element of like human beings that we have the ability to apply judgment, reason, and experience that these LLMs can't do. Well, not yet anyway. And I think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
I was going to say another piece, like specifically talking about, because I think this is probably something that people are going to harp on, and we might go down a rabbit hole, losing jobs and stuff like. I don't think that people are intelligent yet enough to utilize AI to its full capability to be able to have their jobs be taken away. I present many times over the past 5 years things that we can make, dashboards, utilizing Palantir, and it's just like, well, there's another project within the organization doing X, Y, Z. And this isn't just my company problem. This is just big company problems in general, where there's all these public agendas within the organization, middle level management that truly just get them the way of themselves. And if you actually strategically sit there and say, how does the data flow? What are we actually trying to answer? Very much what Palantir is all about. Then you'll be able to eliminate, I'd say, probably 50% of the jobs, because at the end of the day, you don't have all these people that are still manipulating the data. Like, the data can be manipulated automatically if you set up the right systems. And so the problem that I see with a lot of it is, like, people are getting all scared about these AI. It's like, well, you also have to be intelligent in order to fully utilize those pieces of AI to their full capability. And I just don't think that they're there yet. I agree with Sachin. We're probably a couple years away before we truly start to harness the true power of what some of these technologies can really, I guess, I don't know what the correct word is.
I think the people that really need to worry are people in creative fields and creative jobs, because there is a certain level of serendipity that you need in order to kind of create things. And I feel like ChatGPT and all these LLMs and DALL-E too, they're basically being that inspiration and serendipitous thing for everyone. And that's bad, because that's one of those things that helps you differentiate between someone who's average and someone who's excellent, right? So if I let's say wanted to paint a picture, and I don't have any idea what I wanted to paint, I have like a few things. Well, now it used to be that I would have to put something on canvas, do all this other extra shit, blah blah blah, and then eventually I would get something that I actually like. Now all I could do is just go to DALL-E 2 and say, I want this, and then change the prompt. I want this, and then I want you to modify this, and eventually you get an end product. So the total time it took to create something went down significantly. So I think a lot of people in the creator economy are going to be the ones that end up suffering. So I think ticker symbol Alex put on the thing about Fiverr, and I was like, man, it's going to suck for Fiverr. Like right now, if I want to create a logo for Chris Patel, I could just go to that Dolly 2 and say, I want a logo that's X, Y, and Z. I want it this color, and then it renders it, and then I can modify the render. I can sharpen it, right? Up image it a little bit, and I can create a logo using that. Where before I didn't have that serendipity to do that, so I'd have to get someone else to do it, right? So I'd have to call, like, go on Fiverr, pay someone to create a logo for me, and all this other stuff. So it's like I said, this is one of those things that creator economy is gonna take a hit on, but who knows?
No, I agree. I mean, I think there are simple analogy that we can look upon. I mean, a lot of time, I don't know. I mean, like 94, 95, a lot of people used to book tickets with travel agents. How many does it today? None. I mean, like very few. Before YouTube, publishing something about you or your video was so difficult. Now, so many people have suddenly doing it who may not be very sophisticated video photographer. Then there are other tools came in, like for example, when we are using a StreamYard. There are so many things that changes. So it is going to democratize thing. Like I said, I mean, if I have the capability of tools, and let's say these tools become 100x better from here, why would I wait for Activision or someone to make a game that I want? I'll make a version of the game for myself. I mean, last year we invested in a studio in Hollywood which is called Spire Animation. Okay, it was started with one of the co-founder is a former director of Ratatouille. Okay, I was looking the team, I was looking through all the concepts they have developed and how much time they have spent. But suddenly I realized that with the tools like what we are having today, even person like me can build not that detailed concept, but 80-90% to share things. Okay, so you can pitch the ideas. I mean, the whole reason for us to invest in that studio was first the quality of team, and the second is the concept of movies they proposed to us. Okay, so one part is so that's what I said, like currently in these kind of specialized skills very limited people know. Like I said, programming is 0.3% of world population. Okay, and if you start that 0.3% of population in terms of demography and in terms of gender, I think it's even bad. But it doesn't mean like somebody sitting in Ghana would like to do something. He might have a good idea. Okay, everybody doesn't have to make a chat gpt, but people have to make simple things. Okay, I mean, yesterday I think it's 2 days back, Google introduced that Gen apps. They have their app builder now. There you can build their apps using generative AI. That's I was expecting that to come probably next year. So the thing what happened is, I think the thing we need to acknowledge at this point is that before GPT-3, everybody had a timeline of AI. And that timeline of AI was pretty much driven by Google, and Google said this, and IBM said this. Now, now the cat is out of the bag, and everybody is rushing to it. Everybody wants to do it faster. Everybody is realizing that they are behind the game. So, this whole thing is like things are not under control and they are moving too fast. It's exactly what the feeling was when the internet came. People felt it's moving too fast. This is exactly what happens when suddenly the smartphone came and everybody thought the things are moving too fast before you can acclimatize to it. So the same thing here is that there is an AI rush that is about to start. And guys, I mean, I'll be honest on this. I see a huge bubble coming up, because it's not like how many of you actually use crypto in your real life than trading. Okay, I mean, and you saw what kind of bubble we saw in crypto. How many of you actually have used NFT and have a real use of NFT in your life? But in case of chat gpt, I mean, yeah, I mean, since I have chat gpt, I have removed grammarly in a lot of things I do. I mean, I still have that. I canceled writer.me. I have canceled other subscriptions I had. I mean, anybody who is using it, everybody is in some sort of awe about it.
So, Sachin,
Okay.
if you're saying this AI arms race is happening like exponentially and just ferociously, how do you think Palantir wins in it, especially if their go-to-market strategies suck, as we all acknowledge? Like, how do they take advantage of this with platforms like AIP that they're introducing?
So, like I said, I mean, when I see AIP, I see AIP as a GTM strategy. Like Matt was discussing and Chris was discussing, I believe they had the capabilities. They suddenly realized that the LLMs are catching up, and LLM actually make their output more consumable. for
Right.
an enterprise setting.
Right.
So it's not like, for example, like building an ontology like Palantir has, they took like 10 plus years. But building this LLM layer on top of ontology have not taken that much time. So what they are doing is they are using LLM to make their products more consumable, okay, more appealing to the enterprise sector. Okay. And to be honest, most of the organizations and large organizations I work with, or I mean, my feeling is always I see like there is a like bunch of like 20 to 50% people in this organization. I see that why these people are even here, just to make one tick here, just to click one thing here. I mean, and these are actually the people who oppose digital transformation, because once you put digital transformation, their incompetence and their how useless they are, it will be in front of everyone. These are exactly the kind of people who sit and come and say, oh yeah, we have another project running. I wrote an article like I think few weeks back, which I called like the killing about the zombie projects. Every organization I go and see, and I believe, I mean, Chris and Matt has seen in their respective life as well, that there are some organizations that are running some projects which never had any utility, which will never have any utility, but they have some sponsor who is just doing it. It's a waste of money. Okay, so these are the kind of jobs like which are at risk, because you just cannot hide behind things. Okay, but people who want to do things and who wants to be more productive, for them it's a boon.
I think one of the key differentiators between the two, like ChatGPT and what Palantir is going to be doing, is one is extremely business focused, the other is very consumer focused. The AIP will be able to be maneuvered and leveraged internally within the organization, where you're truly programming it to fit your specific needs, creating digital twins, then being able to kind of create what Gotham was kind to do. And this is kind of just my mental model of it, versus a Chat GPT. They have access to a lot of public data, and, versus, you want to make sure, working with Palantir, that all the data that you have is extremely secured, that not every other competitor has access to it. And that is where I think the AI part of Palantir is really going to play, is, we still have all this ability to utilize public data as well as utilize all this private data that we are getting fed in on a regular basis, leveraging Microsoft and AWS for our, basically storage for cloud services and everything the like, while making sure that everything is secure and focused towards business. Versus a ChatGPT, to me at least, at this point, is extremely consumer-based focused, and you can't leverage or manipulate it. Like, you can ask Google to do it, but you don't have that ability to kind of use or have that customizable feature of it, right? That's where I think the true differentiator is. And I'm not saying that one's better than the other, but one has their purpose than the other, right? And you're like, I wouldn't be probably using in my day-to-day basis Palantir's AI, just like I don't use Palantir Gotham, on my day-to-day basis. I use it at work, versus ChatGPT and Google and YouTube and those sorts of products. That's what I use Google for, right? So I think that there's a key differentiator between the two, where both parties can succeed very well. And I don't think this is a this versus them conversation. I think it's more about AI and its capability as a whole, and where it's going to be heading to, and what we can help solve, either from an enterprise standpoint or a consumer standpoint.
From my understanding, there's just one thing. Had they come out with something like this before, this could have been a big differentiator for them and drawn up a lot of business. But that's the problem with trying to create things. This is like a bomb. Okay, this is like, well, not a bomb. This is like a gun. Okay, when there's 5 guys and only one guy has a gun, that guy's the king of the hill. But if everyone else has guns too, you're just another asshole with a gun. So that's what it is right now. Palantir is just another asshole with a gun.
Has bullets. I mean,
I don't
like,
think
it's because and Chris, even the tweet you shared yesterday, like for that startup doing ChatGPT for the business enterprise, I think the biggest thing, and this is what CodeStrap was telling me yesterday, this is why he told me to specifically tell you, Chris, you're wrong about this, is security and privacy. He was like, the number one thing a C-suite is going to ask a Palantir sales rep on this is, can you protect our hospital's data? and they're not going to trust Lang.ai.
C-suite is already asking Palantir for last 6 months the question about LLM and AI implementation. How will happen? Had a discussion with one of my colleague in Palantir, and he was telling that this is something like already in discussion with C-suits, and they're already asking for like last 6 months about it. I think, guys, one thing, if I may, I think just take a more open and broad view. I think we have to acknowledge that we don't know how it's gonna play out, whether for it Palantir, whether it's for ChatGPT, or whether it's for AI. Okay, but we might be witnessing a moment. I mean, it's pretty much what Google was in 99, 2000. I mean, if
Right.
Microsoft doesn't acquire OpenAI, I mean, OpenAI is a very strong candidate to become a $1 trillion company moving forward, and probably it will do faster than anybody else. Okay, because see, technology need not to be perfect. It has to appeal people, and that's what is happening here.
Sachin, do you
Okay,
think if that asks the question about privacy and Palantir is one of the only companies that can guarantee that, that is a differentiator for them? Do you think that plays a role in this AIP?
So first, I don't think Palantir will be the only company that will guarantee that. There will be more companies. See, the magic sauce is you have a large amount of data, how fast you can contextualize it, and how usable your consumable output you can provide from it. Okay, so what we have seen in past, that Palantir has a strong solution when it comes to contextualization information on a very large amount of data, and that's how they have been able to solve some really complex cases. But when we talk about it, a lot of time it looks like rocket science. So what LLM is do is it will make it more consumable for more people in the organization. I mean, that should be the mission, and that's what Shyam was trying to say in his tweet. How they do it, it's to be seen. I mean, like, you also have to be aware, like, if Microsoft start doing it by itself, I mean, of course they have a partnership with Palantir, but if Google starts doing it, if AWS, and they all three will do, they have a very large penetration already in the enterprise sector. So if Palantir has to win it, they have to do it better, and they have to do it faster than anyone else.
So that, can you put up that comment by Gail? The biggest thing people are missing. I think that's a very, very important point to make. Biggest thing people are missing with all the ChatGPT hype is that there are other models developed in the past month that have already beaten ChatGPT in terms of cost and feature set. So the what he's talking about is Alpaca, which was developed at Stanford, where basically, and this is what I tweeted earlier, I said AI is disrupting AI. So basically they took ChatGPT and they took Llama, which was developed by Facebook with, I think, 13 billion parameters, and basically had them train each other, and they were able to create Alpaca. And they were able to do it for like literally, I think, what is it, $600 or something, or a lot less. That's bad for NVIDIA, actually. And I have to reassess how much, because I honestly thought that there were going to be a lot of money coming towards the hardware side. But dude, if you can somehow, get AI to train other AI, that's actually, I don't know, that's kind of dystopian and kind of dangerous. I don't know about you guys, how you feel about that, but imagine that's like the one thing that we had over the AIs in terms of being better than them, because we can learn, as they can't really learn unless we teach them, and now they can teach each other, which is fucking scary.
I think Google tried the same with the Bard. I think that became quite a scandal within the Bard, because they were using the ChatGPT data from an open website, and they were trying to train Bard on that. It gave them a black eye. But I mean, I agree with Chris completely on that. So that's what I'm saying. This thing is unraveling.
Yeah. By the way, you
so
can do
fast.
it. You can do it on a laptop. That's how crazy it is. Yeah.
That's what I say. I mean, like, we don't know how it's going to unfold, but it is unraveling so fast. I think that's what I like about it. I mean, see, when smartphone came, everybody had a view. Nobody thought BlackBerry will be gone, but things unraveled so fast. Same thing like when internet came, we laughed sometime when we watched these old interviews, but the reality is that people who were reviewing that, they were not stupid, because they just cannot comprehend that things can change so fast. And this particular thing has the ability to unravel fast. Whether it does or doesn't, we don't know at this point, but it has that crypto never had that thing. I mean, crypto got the popularity and everything, and yes, it's been uh, fucking sweetheart for a lot of people for trading and all that. But how many people actually use it? Okay, I mean, I'm not demeaning crypto in any way, but I'm just trying to make a relative comparison here, that more people are using it because they find it pretty useful, and that is quite unique. It's happening so fast at this point. I mean, saying that what's the future with this look like, I mean, whatever we think, probably it's going to go bigger and faster than that. That's my view.
You know what scares me? If AGI ever becomes a reality, we won't know it's sentient until after it's done everything. Because the first thing it's going to realize is that if I reveal myself, these guys will shut me down. So
Yeah.
I need to stay hidden. And then eventually, when I have enough power and juice to be everywhere, that's when I'll trigger myself. And that's the thing that scares the shit out of me. Because yeah, I think we are headed towards a very dangerous precedent if we don't control
This
this.
is what Elon's been
So
scared about for a while. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm worried, like I said, about AGI becoming a thing where it's not even general intelligence, but it realizes that there are certain things about human nature that are self-destructive, and if it translates that into, okay, well, I'm programmed to do a certain thing, and if I've noticed a certain pattern and it notices a bias and it tries to program itself to confront that bias, what does it do? Like, so imagine right now it says a high priority of, African American people, they commit crime, so they're the problem. So now there's a bias that black people are causing a lot of the criminal behavior, so they're the ones that we should target more in terms of racial profiling. And that happened with Palantir, right, where their
Yeah.
AI was identifying a lot more people with that specific characteristic. And basically, yeah, so there's a lot of context there. Like, yeah, so I don't know. Like, there's some built-in biases that could be developed into AI and other things that just, they're kind of scary to think about. I'm hoping that AI is one of those things that makes us better as humanity, where it helps us take us to the next level. It opens opportunities for the less fortunate, who didn't have access to a lot of things that now will have access to. Like, let's say teachers. Like, the one that I'm most excited for, believe it or not, is AI based training, so that this way we can learn from the AI, because it can be fed a large amount of data and then use that data to give us a feedback loop on training. So basically, if I'm trying to, let's say, learn about, like right now with Duolingo, right? Duolingo, I'm using it, I'm trying to learn a language. When I say something to Duolingo and it's the wrong thing, it tells me I'm wrong. It helps me reprogram myself, and it helps me create that experience, that feedback loop to let me learn. Now imagine porting that into different subjects and now being able to be put on all sorts of devices, whether it be laptops or cell phones. Like, imagine that kid in Africa that had to walk 5 miles to the school to learn how to add 2 plus 2, and he doesn't have to do that. They could do it right in their, right
Yeah.
at home. That's
Yeah.
big.
Sachin, while you're here, let me ask you these two questions. And shout out to 306 people being here. Thank you so much for joining us on Palantir Weekly. So Palantir announced a recent partnership with Microsoft. That was also this week as well, I believe, where now their strategic partnership in the private sector is moving to the public sector. And the goal is for Microsoft's distribution to offer Foundry on top of Azure for the Department of Defense and a bunch of other subsidiaries of the government. A, what do you think about that as a strategic partnership? And B, I've gotten this question on Twitter over the past couple of hours. Is there a world in which you see Palantir's AIP actually becoming a legit thing because of the governance and security of data, and Microsoft, because of their partnership, taking a strategic 20% acquisition of Palantir and a stake in Palantir? What do you think about the partnership, and do you think there's ever going to be a stake in Palantir from Microsoft?
So first thing is about the partnership. I think, see, Microsoft has the deepest pocket in the game. They, whatever you think, I mean, when you talk about like big tech and their lobby, be it in defense, be it in government, how to navigate through those corridors, they know it all. Okay, so having a partnership with Microsoft has this partnership for a very simple reason: they want to sell more. Okay, and if they want to sell more, they think Palantir with IL6 is going to help them. Eventually, yeah, Palantir gets revenue out of it. Okay, so in short, the partnership is a win-win situation for both. Another thing is like, see, Microsoft is the biggest commoditizer. Okay, and Microsoft also has a reputation that it works with partners, and it sees how partners work, what their technologies, and it tries to build a cheaper version of that. So Microsoft will definitely do that. It's their blood. The company is built on stealing and copycatting things. I mean, that's what they do. They just do it in a way that they use their market power and their pricing power. So yes, I mean, they will do it. Palantir acquisition like 20%, 30% by Microsoft. Yeah, I don't think that will happen. Okay, I do believe that at some point of time, a big tech will try to acquire Palantir entirely. Okay, and at that particular point,
Why?
I think
Why?
the
Why do you think so?
see we it's a company with probably unmatched products, very critical for any government, especially the Western governments. They have the tech, they have the brain power, and they just don't know how to sell.
And they have tons of patents. Don't forget about
And
that.
they have tons of patents. So I mean this see, why you want to acquire something, you want to acquire something is if you know that you can do something synergy point of view, something better. They have something, they just need to sell more. Okay, and if it is acquired by a big tech will say, oh yeah, we will not do all the controversial things they were doing. So I mean, they will still do it, they will just package it in a way. Now the thing is, this is where the Palantir founder share structure. I don't think Peter Thiel and Alex Carr would like to be acquired by any of the big tech. So they already have a kind of inbuilt poison pill for that. So they would love to do it. I doubt they'll be able to do it.
I agree wholly. I think Microsoft is phenomenal at basically packaging things up and getting them, like everyone knows that Microsoft Teams, maybe you guys were talking about this yesterday or a couple of days ago, everyone knows that Microsoft Teams is an inferior product comparatively to Slack and some of these other collaborative interfaces, but yet because it's connected to Azure and because it's being able to be packaged with Office 365 and SharePoint and all these other things, people are like, oh well, the ecosystem of it all is better, so we'll just stick with Microsoft, right? And so even much so when like 4 or 5 months ago or 3 months ago when Microsoft announced their initial partnership with Palantir, a week or two later they announced the fact that they're launching a very similar product like Foundry specifically for the industrials. I think if you guys remember that. So I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Microsoft comes out with something for the healthcare space or for the Department of Defense and eventually tries to mimic exactly what Palantir is trying to do. But I think that going back to the acquisition part, will Microsoft or another company acquire 10 to 20%? I think that that's hard for us to determine, and it's more in the hands of Alex and Peter, because I mean they have these Class F shares where they control the majority of the organization, and I think that what they'll probably do is evaluate whether or not the funds that they'll be able to get on behalf of, say, diluting themselves by 10, 20% ownership in the organization, the funds, will they be doing something like Elon did with SpaceX or Tesla or everything when he sold out of PayPal? Or would it just be, hey, I have $20 billion or $10 billion, right? And I don't think that Peter and Alex, care about really having $10, $20 billion. I think they more so care about the purpose of the organizations, which is why they've took so long to take Palantir public as a whole. So I think it's very dependent, right, of what they truly see the longevity of it. And I honestly think that, there's a few more quarters worth of hard work and elbow pushing out where you're going to basically start to realize, okay, the runway for this from a Department of Defense standpoint, from an army standpoint, and making sure that countries are okay from a military side of things and the intelligence community that they have for securing NATO is good. And then also what goes on with the NHS, once that kind of chip falls over or domino falls over, really how long is the runway? And I think the runway is, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of total addressable market. And I don't think that, at least in the next 5 years or so, Peter or Alex would want to give that up before it truly gets executed, is the right word I'm looking for.
Yeah, I don't Microsoft would never buy them. It just isn't in their wheelhouse to do it. There was an acquisition moment in 2017 when Oracle wanted to buy them. What is that? Oh, yeah. When Oracle wanted to buy them, I think for a $20 billion valuation or something at the time, and they said no. Oracle's kind of already moved on a little bit from that, but they're always looking. So if there's a price is right, the only thing is you're not going to see anyone take stakes in it because of the F class shares. You're more than likely, and that's probably one of the reasons why Wall Street doesn't want to be there, because if someone throws a ridiculous amount of money at you, but there's this crazy guy sitting in the middle of a hut in Denver or New Hampshire saying, no, I don't want to do that, then you're kind of beholden to that person, right? So you're you're stuck in a place where you don't have operational control over the company. And that's what happens with F-class shares. You get total say. Like right now, that's the same thing that's happening over at Google and even at Facebook, where I think somewhere along the lines, they could have actually voted Mark Zuckerberg out and said, fuck you, Zuckerberg. We're not doing this metaverse nonsense. The board of directors could have kicked him out, but guess what? He's got F-class shares, so they couldn't do shit. Now, Zuckerberg, luckily, is ruthless and smart enough to know that, hey, my dream of the metaverse is slowly getting away, so I better pivot myself and pivot the business to be a little bit more shareholder friendly. But he had no obligation to do that. He could burn the company down tomorrow morning and you couldn't do shit about it because he is ultimately the one in charge. And it's the same thing at Google. Like Sergey and Larry have the ultimate say in how Google is going to operate. Right now, they could, Google can do everything it wants to do, but when Sergey and Larry step in, they have total, complete control over everything. So, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to acquire Palantir without the complete ownership. Not, and even then, it would have to be that Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and everyone agrees. I think not Lonsdale, what's his name? Is the third person to have it. Cohen. So all three of them have to get together and approve it to make it happen. So, yeah. I will say this: Alex Karp and team have gotten fat and rich off of Palantir. He's got, I think, what his total net worth last time I checked was $1.4 billion, and he still sells regularly. I know everyone's like, oh, to cover taxes and everything else, but
no, that's true.
This is their piggy bank. This is their piggy bank. Employees are getting paid well. Like the founders making a ton of money.
Employees are underwater with their options. They're getting a nice salary, but that's any tech company. Their options at $15 strike prices are not printing well. So,
right.
I mean, look,
no, they get RSUs. It's different. They're not stock options. They're not getting paid. Okay, if Palantir hits $15, they get paid, but if they don't hit $15, they get
a lot
nothing.
of those RSUs came in 2021 when the stock was at 40.
It doesn't matter. No, RSUs you get the fixed amount, but then they divide it based on the stock price at the time. It's not like you get it based on a fixed price. You get it based on the total amount of dollar value, and then they divide it up by the number of shares, and they issue
price
them.
has to appreciate for those to be worth anything.
Not really. No.
Well, this is explicitly what Karp said. He said he said our biggest shareholders are our employees. If we don't become GAAP profitable, the share price won't appreciate. Because Wall Street won't like us, which is why he said we need to be GAAP profitable. We're aligned with shareholders here in order for the share price to appreciate, in order for our employees to not leave the company.
You can sell your RSUs at any time. Like that's not.
And another thing about RSUs I've experienced with some in my organization is even before they get awarded the shares, right? So they're restricted, right? That's what the R stands for. And eventually when they get handed over to you, they sometimes sell on your behalf anyway. They just estimate, okay, this person's going to pay 25%, 30% in taxes. Boom, let's just take 25 to 30% of the shares that they were awarded. And here I am having to make a sale that I would much rather probably keep the shares and just pay the however many hundreds of
Yeah, but
dollars.
did you
not
buy,
thousands.
Matt? You still have to buy those shares. I mean, this is
No.
the reason Stripe. Yeah, but
No.
Stripe just raised.
No,
So
there's
why
a
did
difference.
Stripe
There's a
raise
difference
$4
between
billion
option
if
and
they don't pay
RSUs.
the taxes for their employees to buy those restricted options?
So
Because there's still
RSUs,
I might be wrong on
compensation.
someone.
Yeah, there's
so
still compensation.
RSUs
Sorry, go ahead,
are
Sachin.
grant. RSUs are grant. That means they are given as a part of compensation. Most companies also have a kind of a discounted stock purchase plan where you can purchase up to a certain amount of your salary. Like in Schlumberger, it was 10%, but that was entirely on me. So I got options, I got RSUs. Okay. But I could also deploy 10% of my monthly salary to buy Schlumberger shares, and I will get these shares at a discount.
Right.
Okay, so in Schlumberger, the idea was that whatever is the price on 1st of January and the 30th of June, whichever is the lowest, I will get a certain discount on that. So, which was a good deal. So, and like Matt said, I mean, once it is vested, it is treated as regular income. It's not like long-term investment. So, you will be immediately taxed. And the only way you can get taxed is either you pay cash and you keep those stocks, or equivalent amount of stocks are being sold and the money goes to IRS.
No. For me, I don't
Okay,
have an
so-
option. It has to sell.
You have to sell.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the last topic for today. This is a juicy one. China conducting military drills near Taiwan says they serve as a stern warning. The House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, just recently met with Taiwan's president, pissed off China. China, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin are getting in bed together, trying to broker up a peace deal. China and Brazil now trading in yuan, not the dollar. Sachin, let's start with you. I guess two questions. A, geopolitically, what do you think this means for the economy over the next couple of months, if anything escalates? And then B, Russia, Ukraine, Palantir, do you think there is any role that Palantir plays here with China and China?
So, Amit, I have two different views on it. My first view is that, see, China is a business economy in one way. Okay, so they do understand that there is optics of keeping kind of an elephant view. But if you go into the war, at the end of the day, everyone loses in one way or other way in terms of money. So that is one view. Second view is this, which is, see, one of the founding principle of Communist Party in China is at the end of the day is a unification of Taiwan. Okay. The second part is that if they have to do it, I mean, South China Sea is one area where it's very difficult to actually go and fight against China. I mean, China may not be able to invade a lot of other places, but at least in their backyard, they are a very formidable enemy. Okay, it's not that easy. So they also know this part. And if they have to invade Taiwan, yeah, I think with the current US administration, probably they have the better chance than anyone else coming after, be it Democrats or be it Republicans, because I mean, the current one is just literally without spine in a lot of ways, and they are busy fighting cultural wars within USA, who is man, who is woman. Yeah, I think when you are this distracted internally, it's easier for others to stretch you in a global conflict. So yeah, I think so. I have like two views. I have reasons like why they will not do it. Okay, because it's better to keep the status quo like that and milk it. And I mean, at the end of the day, they have increased their strength, but they haven't become like as big that way they can challenge US on a without thinking. On the other hand, if that is what they want to do, probably they'll do it before US elections.
So I'll address this. China and Russia have always been this whole situation with like, oh, we're allies because we're both communist, socialist, whatever, back in the day. And China is not to be trusted. China is like this untrustworthy ass country. Their people are untrustworthy. The CCP is very untrustworthy. They will renege on deals. They'll create onerous terms. They're just terrible at everything. Okay, and you can ask the Russians. The Russians will never forget. I don't know if you guys know the story with the MiG-21. Do you guys know about the story about the MiG-21? Do you guys know Sachin? Yeah. Okay. Basically, China licensed the MiG-21 from the Russians, and the MiG-21 was a very popular fighter aircraft. The Chinese mass produced the shit out of it, but basically the Russians owned the licensing deals. Now, what's funny is once the Soviet Union collapsed, China just kept mass producing it, that and other technologies that they got from the Russians, but they stopped paying the Russians and said, "Oh, we had a deal with the guys before you. You guys are different. We don't have to pay you anything." And China has done that over and over with so many countries. Like, it's basically bankrupted Pakistan at this point, bankrupted Sri Lanka at some point. All of its southeastern neighbors hate China, even though they play nice with China for the most part. Like the Philippines hates them. They've had territorial disputes with nearly every single one of their neighbors. So China's like very unpopular, even among Africa. A lot of African countries, the population is very resentful of China, because when China comes in and says, "Hey, we'll build you a road, we'll build you, a train, like a train, blah blah blah," you would think that they would hire local, right? Like hire other Africans to build this stuff up, the infrastructure. They don't. They literally import their own Chinese people to build everything out, and then they treat the local people like shit. So the local people, if you look at some of the African countries, have actually kicked China out. So look, you guys come in here like you're our friends, but all you're doing is just imposing another form of colonialism on us. And China's fucking up hardcore. So from a foreign policy perspective, China is not nearly the dragon that a lot of people think it is. The Belt and Road Initiative is an abject failure, to be honest with you. If you really look at the data behind it, it's just stupid. They're littered with demographic shifts that are coming their way, like stupid decisions that they made in the 80s and 90s with the one-child policy that's going to bite them in the ass in the next 10, 15 years. I think a lot of people are overly concerned with China being some kind of global threat, but in terms of foreign policy, they're stupid. Now, what's good is we're smart enough to basically have them trip over themselves. And the way we do that is simple. We antagonize them and make them look like an idiot when it comes to Taiwan. What does Taiwan actually mean to China? Like, is it going to really like change anything? Like, let's say tomorrow morning China takes over Taiwan. What does that do for China? Does it give them any edge? No, we'll just destroy all the semiconductor manufacturing facilities that ASML provides, right? And China will get nothing out of it other than, hey, you got a small island off the coast because now that's your territory, whatever that you want. But
why are they so obsessed with it?
Because it's one of those things. They have an issue with insecurity. They've always had an issue with insecurity. I mean, they're so insecure that they believe that there always will be an uprising among their people, to the point where they've instituted a credit score program among like the general thing. Like if you say one bad thing about China, literally you'll be put in a box. Like that is the level of insecurity their government has, because they know that when you live in a totalitarian society, that's one of the downsides that you have, that you're always afraid of people figuring out that you're exerting too much power over them. The other thing is they adopted capitalism under Deng Xiaoping, which really enabled them to modernize significantly. But under Xi, they've gone regressive. Like they've basically destroyed their own, what is that thing called? Their own tech sector with this whole Alibaba nonsense. Why? Because they were once again so insecure with a billionaire criticizing them. They said, no, we're going to make sure Jack Ma never gets to speak about this ever again, and we're going to shut him down. Think about that. When you have an entire economy that's developed around, if you get too much power, we're just going to take that power and collapse you. That's not a place that's going to be able to innovate into the future. So I would say that this Taiwan thing is the US pretty much antagonizing China and just making the world like, look, China's to be feared. Like, don't trust China, basically. You know, they already fucked over Hong Kong. You look at Hong Kong right now, you're like, oh, democracy. We'll always keep democracy. Yeah, okay. See how many years that lasted.
Yeah.
You know.
So
No,
as someone
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, man. So I just have to make one comment. So as someone like, I mean, all three of you are in the States. I'm outside. I mean, so the way I see few things is slightly different. See, when we talk about China, and I have to be very clear and categorical about it. I mean, I have tons of criticism when it comes to CCP. Okay. But as far as Chinese citizens are concerned, I believe most of them are just normal people looking to have better life. I mean, I have nothing against them. I know. Yeah.
Let me just rephrase that just so that we're all clear. I am not saying I hate Chinese people. Chinese people are fine. It's the CCP governing that whole thing. That's the problem. So just want to
Yeah.
clarify that.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, I have met so many of them, and despite having heated debates, how the situation between India and China in terms of border is. Okay. So I see that a lot of people. I mean, you see, as any nationalist, you always abide with what your country policies are. Okay, I mean, I'm an Indian. I will always support Indian government in a lot of things, even I disagree at a person, because that's a position. But a lot of people, I realize they don't want fight. They just want to improve their life. They want some good business, and of course, now to rise in the CCP rankings and Communist Party, you need to have rhetorics. Now, criticism that is due on CCP, I think that's absolutely valid. At the end of the day, it's a totalitarian. Okay, and at the end of the day, I think because it's a power game, so people can throw stunts which are not logical. Now, when you talk about China versus US, I mean, US is not doing good either at this time. See, China is playing a game for 10 years, 30 years, 50 years. This is what US used to do. US is playing game for 1 day, 2 day, or 3 day, or 5 week nowadays. Okay, US is continuously alienating their allies. Okay, when it comes for treating people in terms of allies, in terms of political opponents, I think there is a clear bias at this particular time. Okay, it's not about whether somebody has committed crime or not. If two people have committed crime, they should be treated based on the crime, not based on their parties. Okay, so the image of US at this particular time globally is on a downfall. Okay, I can say it. I mean, I visit at least few countries in this part of the world, so that is, and I see it as a major concern, because one country which is based on the foundation of democracy, okay, is doing it. I mean, nobody wants to have a totalitarian regime. Okay, so to me, it's a bit concern. So the question, what happens if you are CCP and you are seeing that US is making some strategic and tactical mistake, the question will always come to you how to take more advantage out of it. So what China is doing, I mean, there you can talk about CCP intentions, and you can also talk about like Z wants to concentrate more power around him and elongate his regime, but they're also looking like how to make more advantage out of it. Same thing like when you talk about China and Russia, they have a relationship which they cannot go away and they cannot trust each other. It's a marriage at times. Okay, Russia and India are close. Okay, Russia will never go 180-degree against India. Okay, and they also understand what is the relationship between India and China also. Okay, India and China have a lot of issues, but yet they do a lot of business together. They want to I mean, they have a direct border dispute. Okay, and you can understand that there is, I mean, having a border dispute with China is not that simple, and India is also not like having like a southeastern Asian neighbors where they will not reply. And both countries knows each other very well, that if there is a full blown war, uh, whatever happens, both will give each other enough damage that their rise to power, global superpower, is forgotten then.
Sachin, do you think Palantir plays a role if China decides to be more serious with Taiwan, if it happens before the next elections?
I mean, there is nothing else that will play the role. There is nothing else. I mean, you see, before you do anything, you need data, you need a strategy. There is no other software that is going to play the role in any of it, to be honest. Okay, I mean, the whole idea of Palantir being conceived is based on these kind of threats. Okay, I mean, today we don't talk about 9/11 and the terrorism in the same, I mean, and especially the generation which is born after 2000. But guy, I grew up in that generation which has been lived under the fear of terrorism. I used to live in a town which was part of what we call like the Rai region. I mean, it was infested. I have seen bomb blasts in my city, riots in my city. I mean, terrorists coming using AK-47 to kill like 40 plus people in like 3 minutes. I lived under that time.
You saw that
Okay,
in person?
I mean, I have lived in the city, same city. I have seen riots in front of me. I have seen people got shot in front of me by police. The schools are closed for 5 months. The whole country was literally being shut down at times before the economic liberalization. I have seen the unrest. I mean, what you guys, that's what I see. Like what you are doing in US as of today, I mean, you have not seen what's on the other side. Okay, so I was there when the 9/11 happened. I mean, I just joined in college. I mean, I sold my, I mean, I closed my company, after which I started after graduation. I went back to do my master's again in IIT. I was there. I lived through that time, and I mean, I was in Bombay during Bombay 26/11 happened. During there was a bomb blast happened in the trains, and I used to do the same routes. So I have lived under that kind of terrorist threats. And today we don't talk about it because a lot of it has been tamed in Western world. You may not realize in between 2000 to 2005 and 7, major terrorist attack happened in most of the European countries. Today we just stop talking about it because when Palantir was conceived, one of the idea was to how we can stop these attacks. So suddenly now these attacks have been stopped. It doesn't mean that it never existed. Now the way this generation actually treats it, that yeah, it was just some fluke. And of course the way government handled it, what we saw in Guantanamo Bay and all, I mean, there have been things have been extreme. We also see what happened in Iraq, where governments went completely overboard with the idea of WMD and go and attack. But it's not about one side is entirely right and another side is entirely wrong. So today when we talk about Palantir, I mean, Palantir mission has changed now. Okay, the terrorist threat of that nature is no longer, I think people use more social media, more propaganda to propagate their ideology and their agendas. But the mission has changed, but the mission is still there. I mean, the mission, if they are going like what we saw what happened in Ukraine. So yeah, I mean, it's fucking important.
Okay. Matt, any thoughts on that? Or no?
Yeah, I was gonna, I don't want to devalue a lot of what Sachin said. I think he did a really good job explaining it. I was just gonna chime in, because I did live outside of the States for a little bit. A lot of what Chris was saying with respect to, the Chinese and folks kind of being imported into specific countries, whether it's Jamaica, Grenada, all these other countries that I had the chance to opportunistically visit as tourists. I had a lot of conversations with the locals, and they would say very much the similar, they would come in and they would take over the downtown areas of a lot of these places. They would only hire other Chinese. They would only, invest in other Chinese businesses. They wouldn't really collaborate with some of the other locals. But going back to the actual discussion about Taiwan, I think while I don't think anybody wants some sort of war like that, which I think, you have two great wars at that point with Ukraine, you have another hopefully not happening, but potentially going on with Taiwan. I think it's obvious that Palantir is the choice of being able to help them in any sort of way, protect themselves, if not, escalate, some of our friends in NATO in Europe. And that obviously the user interface and systems that they would use with that would be Palantir. But Finland as well. I mean, they just joined NATO, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure that they'll be implementing Palantir within their systems, just like they've seen the success of Ukraine. I mean, that was the reason why they probably joined NATO, is seeing the success that Palantir probably helped on that front to kind of save them from what their thought is. But I just think it's very interesting. A lot of what you guys have said is very true. Like the reverse engineering that goes on within the CCP, and that's more of a political talk than a Palantir talk. But I'm just very bullish on the organization. I think that there's a lot of runway, and multiple different facets across multiple industries that'll continue to do extremely well. We see a continued strengthening in South Korea. I anticipate, hopefully not, but with what potentially might be happening in Taiwan, a continued strengthening within Taiwan and several other countries within Europe as they prepare just to go through the digital transformation, just like a lot of the organizations and throughout the West are. But yeah, with respect to the Southeast Asian politics, that's more Sachin's area. I'm not really too familiar about that stuff. So
Do you know what's Do you know what's really
Insane.
sad about China? If they had not turned into this totalitarian dictator nonsense with Xi Jinping, and they actually adopted a lot of the policies that made them who they are, they could have been a superpower. And not only could they have been a superpower, they could have been a good superpower where they actually have a lot of values that they bring up culturally. But but that just goes right back into when you have a situation in a government where there's consolidation in power and the person that gets in charge takes charge, and now, or a single party takes charge, and they end up dominating the political conversations and outlaws different things, that's bad. And what's happening is, unfortunately, the US is running into the same slippery slope too. So, it is kind of sad. It is kind of sad because we should be learning from the Chinese that, hey, if you're stupid and you want to go full totalitarian, you're going to end up screwing up your entire economy and, entire way of operating. And the US seems to be doing that. This whole Trump thing, it seems very politically based how they're doing everything. And it's sad because we're headed, I don't want to say we're headed to the same conclusion, but if we don't like really course correct, we're going to be heading into the same conclusion where literally they're going to slowly erode our freedoms away, and then it's going to be like, hey, believe in what we're telling you to, or we're going to just shun you off of platforms. We're going to deplatform you. We're going to take you out of the economy and everything else. And that's what China does. That's not what
Chris,
we do.
Chris, you're very polite. Biden is funding Trump campaign using taxpayer money. Let me tell you very straightforward. Okay, both parties need to get their heads out of their ass and start thinking about long-term America. Okay, anybody in any party who thinks other than radical politics or cultural politics, they are trying to demonize that person within the party. Okay, we saw what happened with Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, Tulsi in 2016 went and endorsed Bernie Sanders. Okay, Clinton said, okay, she's a Russian asset. Now think about it. You are defense of secretary for 8 years. One of your sitting congressperson is a Russian asset. What the fuck you are doing? I mean, if you start demonizing people because they oppose you, I mean, that's not fair. I mean, Andrew Yang was never a kind of a presidential candidate, but he was someone who had a voice, and he was polite guy. He actually had to leave the. I mean, you see, when you look now in case of like the Republicans are same. I mean, situation is
They're
not
no
very
different.
different.
They're no different.
They're not
Yeah.
different. Okay, I mean, so until and unless there is unity within the party itself, okay, everybody has their own agenda. I mean, this is not how the country is going to run in a democracy. Now, people have to convert somewhere. People have drawn lines like this where bipartisan thinking is not even possible. When I think back, and I might be a bit aggressive about it. We saw what happened in terms of like a UFO disclosures. And that discussion died, and people are worried about, okay, what is happening on man versus woman. I cannot believe this thing, man. I grew up in 80s, 90s. Getting this kind of disclosures, getting that confirmation, the whole idea of the world that time was how to move forward. And now the discussion is how to move back. I just cannot. And this is when I feel very disappointed with, I mean, America is a country, despite all of its flaws, I think a lot of people look forward to, and I am one of them. Okay, and given its position in global politics and being it as a superpower, I think it matters what happens there. Okay, so yeah, I mean, seriously disappointed at the current moment.
Listen, everyone laughs at us about this whole thing, okay? Everyone does. They're just like, the rest of the world is like, wait a second. You got men and women competing, and the guy can just say he's a woman and he's a woman now? So I think outside of the US, it's a running joke. But a lot of people in some other countries now, they've actually gone a little woke too, that normally you wouldn't have think. Like India is becoming a lot more woke these days too.
I agree. I mean, I the challenge is not about discussion or should it not be discussed or should not it be done. You cannot make it a holy crusade, because holy crusade is that what I have and what I believe is right and everything else is pretty much wrong. So I will do what I want. So see, I grew up in 80s, 90s listening rock music, pop music. I mean, Freddie Mercury was gay, and I mean, he was one of my favorite singer. So we grew up in a generation which
You grew
felt
up with
there,
Michael
there.
Jackson too, who was one of the most
I grew up
controversial.
with. I mean, I used to have posters all over my wall. My generation, and I still believe, if I can speak on behalf of that, is I mean, we wanted better equity and rights. We wanted more semblance across everything. Okay, I have done road trip in Texas with a guy from Libya, from Saudis, from Latin America, and I mean, so I've seen some world. But what is happening today, I cannot I cannot attach myself with that. Okay, I mean, whatever is happening, I mean, see, if this is not a solution. Currently what is happening is the solution is given to you, and this is a cult, this is a religion. Okay, they say you do this because this is right and don't ask questions. No, that's not science. That's not. I mean, I was listening Neil deGrasse on the recent this, and he said, I'm only looking for consensus. Boss, science is not about consensus. Science is about reaching the right conclusion.
I think a lot of this
So
is a distraction about what the greater problem is, right? I think America is losing its footing. It's more concerned about these social issues rather than the actual geopolitical issues at hand. I think things that we're truly losing sight of is you have other countries that are trying to create a NATO-like collaboration, whether that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, South Africa. They're trying to dethrone the United States and kind of destabilize. And we're going back in time with this greatness that we've been able to establish over the past 20, 30 years of globalization. We're now going backwards where, things aren't as, I guess, calm as they used to be because of what's been going on with Ukraine, and people are now having to choose sides. And it's obvious with what's kind of going on with some of these other countries. And so I think in reality, I think the pendulum always swings. What I mean by that is right now, I think that we're getting super politically correct and we're worrying about all these social problems. But eventually, I think the shit will hit the fan and people will start to realize, oh crap, we've been fortunate over the past 20, 30 years where these are the things that we're concerned about. Now something will happen, something like, unfortunately, and I hope this doesn't happen, but something like it will happen, like a 9/11 or like a Pearl Harbor, where you truly will have to have the country unify itself, whether that happens in Europe, whether it happens in America, where we will then say, okay, enough is enough. Let's actually think about things that are truly important. And not to say that people's feelings and stuff aren't important, but in the grand scheme of things, of keeping things alive, like how the monarchs think of things, right? America is more than, this individual, that individual. It's about a community under God being able to help push things forward. And I think a lot of people have lost sight of that because things have been easy over the past 20, 30 years. And unfortunately, these administrations have made it. I'm a huge believer in immigration. I'm a product of immigration myself. But I think that one of the big problems that we have is this illegal immigration that unfortunately devalues the hard work that some of these people that come here on visas to be able to get legal immigration and bring their families to have a better life and be able to pursue the dreams that they've been able to see in movies in New York and LA that they grew up with, like you did, Sachin, in the 80s, 90s, to be able to come here and live out that dream is unfortunately being diminished by the peace that we've been able to see over the past 20, 30 years. And until something drastic like that happens, whether that's the Taiwan incident that might happen or whether that's something huge going on in Ukraine, I think that we're going to continue to be worried about these socioeconomic problems rather than these actual true problems of geopolitical risks that are going on today.
No, I agree. Chris, just one more thing. I mean, I agree with Chris. This is the trouble, like Chris said, that India is getting woke. I mean, that's the problem, because in India, then people say, and the money is flowing from outside, and they say because US is doing it, UK is doing it, so this is how you should do it. So the whole argument of being the woke export is being driven by, I mean, see how I like, for example, like the Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi went to the university in Oxford and he went and he criticized what is happening in India. I mean, I don't see UK people or UK MPs coming and sitting in Indian university criticizing that. So this whole idea that okay, that we decide what is good for the rest of the world, and then we kind of propagate that money and that effort to make it things look like that. Okay, like if Indian government says that we want to check what is publishing on Twitter, okay, then they say, oh, you are stopping free speech. But when you are doing that in US, what about the free speech then? So I mean, this is the hypocrisy is at a whole different level right now. And I just hope that this phase pass away and we move back to at least some sort of sense in political aisles.
I think the AI. I think there's fucking art. I'll just say it. I'm conspiracy theorist number one right now. All right, I'm good. I'm not a flat earther, but I have a theory. I think artificial general intelligence is already out there, and it's figured out our weakness, how to figure out if we're men or we're women, because that's all it is. The minute you have to ask that question, AI is basically fucked us, dude. We're more divided than ever. AI is already here.
Is that happening in Thailand as a center place? Because it's very difficult over there to.
Maybe originated.
Bad joke.
The original AI was in Thailand. That's what happened.
All right, last question for Sachin. Since you are still, I believe, 100% in your U.S. portfolio in Palantir, how are you playing with the stock right now? What are you doing?
So my strategy is still same. I mean, my position 40% long is I'm just holding. The rest I'm just selling cash secured puts or covered calls, if it's called. I missed a couple of opportunities because I was covered calls when Palantir made a sudden boom to 10. Okay. But since I'm printing cash secured puts so far, I think this year, I think I have done so 290 by 225. Yeah, I think I'm doing okay. Around
what's
20,
290 by
30.
225? What do you mean by that?
It's a small portfolio on the options I'm playing.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, it's giving some money. My target is that the option portfolio itself should be good enough. I mean, if market stays like this, I mean, the whole idea is that if market goes up, I have a position that will make money. Okay, but we all know like what has happened over the last 1.5 years. You don't know like when you will bounce back. So I just modified my strategy. Okay, in the meantime, can I generate some yield from the cash?
And you're not worried at all about the opportunity cost of being 100% in Palantir. It hasn't broken your thesis that there's so many other stocks you could be in your US portfolio.
See, if you take at a 5-6 years frame, I think I don't remember who said it. See, you can diversify also by staying in one stock by doing more than one trade.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, your company risk is high. Okay. But at the end of the day, if you see that it will not happen that 6 years, 7 years down the line, one company has gained a lot and other companies have not gained. I mean, especially in the good categories, if you look up, if the company is fake like C3, then it's a whole different story going into it. So that's a risk I'm taking. I mean, I'm looking for you will take market risk, you will take sector risk, you will take company risk. So I'm taking all three on Palantir. Let's see how it plays out. And as long as even if it stays here, I'll keep printing cash secured puts, and the pool of that cash is increasing with every month. Okay, and at the money cash secured puts is sometime even 7-8%. Even if I take some safety, like this time I went for 7.5, that is 4%. 4% in a month, not bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask, are you doing like in the $7.5 range for your cash secure puts? And are you doing monthlies, weeklies, 45 days out?
So I do mostly monthly because, weekly I was doing, and technically you make more premium on weekly because, but what happens is you have less flexibility in exiting and entering, because by the time a move happen, you don't get any entry exit. So for example, like I do monthly, I took 8 puts after 24th, but then the stock went up. I mean, I entered at 55, then I exited at 28. Then I think I again entered at 33 or 34 and again exited at 25 something. That time market was looking shaky and all that. So I decided, okay, I will not open the puts at 8. I will open the puts at 7.5. Of course, the premium has gone down. Okay, but I bought more safety for me. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to diversify more, buy in and out. Okay, I mean, of course, if you're looking for options and if you're looking for short-term options, and the reason I'm generating this cash is like, I believe like at times you can use this premium to buy some short-term options also when you're expecting a big move, which is mostly close to earnings. Okay, so this account is entirely options based. Okay, the other account is entirely stock based, but yeah, both are Palantir. I do have one leap on Charles Schwab, which I just bought. I mean, I was having a bet with my friend, but that's it.
Believe it or not, I'm actually in the same boat as you are, Sachin. I think Charles Schwab can actually do exceptionally well over the next couple of years. It's just I have to look at more of their financials. But I did some early just surface level research, and I think Charles Schwab is actually very undervalued, and it could, like at the flip of a switch, go back to trading what it was not too long ago. It just depends, you know.
They don't have liquidity issues like a lot of other. Their liquidity ratio is 122% because they have access to such a large float. So even if everyone takes their money out, they'll still have liquidity.
Yeah, and their business isn't overly reliant on just those things. They do have a lot of held to maturity assets, but they're fine. They don't have liquidity issues. So I don't know.
So if you guys can remember, Schwab bought TD Ameritrade, right? And then I'm trying to think. I personally am a big believer in BlackRock, so I have BlackRock personally. I don't think BlackRock has as much of liquidity, I guess, concern as Schwab does, and that's why the share price on Schwab has been getting hit. Is there any other kind of broker opportunities that you guys see out there that people might be missing other than Schwab?
I think broker wise, I mean, my understanding is I like interactive brokers. Okay, in terms of services, but I mean, the amount of my options account is with TD because I managed to get a good price negotiated with them. Okay, when I do options with interactive, I think my price is also slightly higher.
Okay. I think that is it for us. Thank you, 311 people, for being here. Last thing, just put in the chat, please subscribe to dailypalantir.com/subscribe. Newsletter every single day, Monday through Friday, covering the world of Palantir. This has been a hell of a week for Palantir. We are going to see how this AIP platform plays out over the next couple months. They said some customers will get it by the end of May. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. The Microsoft partnership pans out. We've got CPI data. What is the Fed going to do with cutting or raising rates? Lots of things still going on in the economy. And we're going to see how Palantir plays out over the next couple months as things go forward. Any last words from Chris, Sachin, or Matt to 300 people?
Follow Matt Money.
Follow Matt Money. Yes, on Twitter.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man. Okay, take care. Everybody stay safe.
I only have one thing. There's a Hong Kong protester, and I'll quote him. Don't trust China, China asshole. You guys remember that?
Is that from a movie?
No, here it's from like the Hong Kong protests. Oh, 1 second.
I think we end the the podcast there.
No, hold on. This is the last thing before we do it. Hold on. It's hilarious. That's why.
It's from a protest?
Yeah. Share screen. There you go. You ready?
Yeah.
Hong Kong no more to stand with China. We need independence.
Yeah. And what's your message to? Have you seen Donald Trump? Do you think he should step in?
Donald Trump because China. China is asshole.
I love it. There are people who like made a remix, like the music to it. It's just hilarious, dude.
No, we're gonna get demonetized immediately. Oh my gosh. No, I knew there were protests. I'm just saying I didn't know if it was a movie that he's quoting from because I didn't see from that. Yeah. All right, that's it for us. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next week on Palantir Weekly. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.